Yeah, before we get to the kill list, Scott, let's talk about a few big stories that have fallen off of the radar. The first is just recently, both sides accused the other of massacring all these Ukrainian prisoners of war inside a Russian prison. Russia said that Ukraine used HIMARS supplied by the U.S. to kill its own forces, which were being held by Russia. Ukraine accused Russia of actually killing these prisoners. Any updates on that? Have you seen anything that gives you an indication as to what actually happened? And the same with the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. That was a very big story until this Ukrainian victory in the Northeast, where, again, both sides were accusing the other of shelling a nuclear plant. Without knowing into the details, the idea to me that Russia would be shelling a nuclear plant that it's occupying seemed pretty far-fetched, but in Western media, at least, we have no indication as to who is actually doing it. So your comments on both of those incidents.
Sure. Vladimir Putin. That's all I'm going to say. It's Putin's fault. He does everything bad. Everything Putin touches is evil. And Putin takes Russian artillery shells and diverts them onto Russian forces. Putin will take a HIMARS and take control of it. I'm being facetious here and probably not too successful and probably not too funny, but it just shows the absurdity of it. Russia sees that. We'll start with the prison. Russia fought a major battle in Mariupol. Mariupol was the headquarters of the Azov Regiment, which is a fundamentally neo-Nazi, horrific death squad, murdering, rapist, thuggish, the worst possible people in the world. They make the SS stormtroopers look heroic by comparison. These are bad, bad people. And not only did they capture thousands of them, but they captured the electronic media going. Because you know what Azov Regiment has in common with your average rapist, murderous, thug, scum human being? They like to document their crimes. So when they rape a woman, they film it. When they murder a child, they film it. When they torture somebody, they film it. And it's all on their cell phones. And guess who has the cell phones right now? Russia. And they're building these cases. And these are detailed cases, well documented. There will be no question about what happened. And when this story is told, it's not just going to talk about the crimes committed by these rabid dogs that need to be put down. I'm giving away I'm wearing it on my sleeve right now. I have no use for people that do this kind of stuff. But Russia's going to give them their day in court, but it's not going to be a pretty day because the case is going to be incontrovertible and no one's going to be able to contradict it. It's not going to show the crime, but it's going to show the linkage between this crime and official Ukrainian government policy. Never forget at the end of the day that this is a Ukrainian government that has passed laws that ban the Russian language, ban Russian culture, ban Russian history, ban everything Russian. The fact is, let's take all the Ukrainian laws, put them together, and let's remove the term Russia and insert the word Jew. And now what you have is Nazi Germany. That's exactly what you have. It's the same policies, the same everything. So this is what we're talking about. And these were the guys that were on the front line. Azov Regiment came into existence after the Maidan coup revolution, whatever you're going to call it, in 2014. This was the right sector, the Nazis that came in and took over the city of Mariupol. One of the untold stories is the rape of Mariupol. What happened when these guys came into Mariupol, what they did to the Russians there. It will be documented. The story will be told. And you know who doesn't want this story told? The Zelensky government. So now the Russians have assembled the worst of the worst in this prison where they're in the process of interrogating them. They are collecting the information. They have the video evidence. They're now getting the eyewitness testimony. They're building into a case that can be presented to the world. And this will be horrific, not only for Ukraine, but for the United States, for anybody who supported this. This is, when the Russians come out and pull the trigger on this, it's going to be a tough day for the West. So what was the solution? The solution was, we know where these guys are. Let's kill them. Eliminate the witnesses.
I mean, this was, Scott, it's established that this prison was hit with a HIMARS.
That's what I'm getting at next. I mean, and the thing, the thing about HIMARS.
Is that go ahead. I know that Russia showed fragments of a HIMARS, but is it actually proven that?
Well, you're right. I haven't gone in and done the United Nations independent, impartial, analysis of the fragments and the whole and all that. You're right. We have the Russian word for it. So In theory, it could have been, anything. There is imagery that shows the hole in the roof that hit the roof, and the nature of the hole. I am a professional at crater analysis and forensic investigation, and my looking at that allows me to create a rough indication of the line of flight, which, according to map orientation, points towards Ukraine. But I'm not in a court of law, and I haven't taken sworn testimony yet. I'm comfortable with the Russian position, but I do agree that you're right. To say that it's incontrovertible evidence that HIMARS was involved, I can't do that.
Yeah,
It's
like
only
CNN asked some experts, and they denied that a HIMARS could have been involved. So there's definitely a counter narrative there.
Well, one of the reasons why they denied is that the United States. It's interesting. The United States was like, look, we don't know. We don't know what the Ukraine. See, the United States has never denied it. What the United States said, it's a he said, she said thing, man. Russia's saying this, Ukraine's saying this. We don't know. And then when people said, well, it was HIMARS, the U.S. government response was, we can't dictate what the what happens when we turn the weapons over. But what's interesting is that the deputy director of intelligence for the Kiev Oblast, the Kiev district, Ukrainian, came out and he said, every aspect of HIMARS is coordinated with the U.S. government. Every aspect of the operation, to include the targeting. So when there's a target for HIMARS, when HIMARS is released for a target, the U.S. government has cleared that target hot, approved that target. And if that's the case, this again is a Ukrainian deputy director of intelligence of the Kiev district, which is responsible for the receipt of HIMARS, says this. This means that the United States was involved in planning. And if that's the case, and let's just make it perfectly clear here, you can't strike a prison for the purpose of killing prisoners. That's a war crime. I don't care what kind of scum are in the prison. That's a violation of due process. It's a war crime, 100%. Now, Ukraine can do it because they're Ukraine. No one's going to hold them to account. But now, if they're saying that the United States was involved, that means there's a whole chain of people, military officers, serving military officers, who are now war criminals because they participated, they conspired with the Ukrainians to carry out a military action with a piece of munition controlled by the United States. It puts them in a very bad position. So I personally believe that Ukraine, with the green light of the United States, fired a HIMARS against the prison for the sole objective of killing as many of these prisoners as possible to deny their eyewitness testimony in the coming trials about the crimes of the Azov regiment. That's my personal belief. It's based on a lot of supposition. It's based upon a dearth of fact, a lot of speculation, and you can take it with a grain of salt. Now we come to Zaporizhia. Go ahead.
Before you go to Zaporizhia, there is a little precedent here, just to illustrate your point, something we've reported on at the Gray Zone in an article by Esha Krishnaswamy. And it's been being widely reported now in Western media that the Kremlin allies are going into prisons to recruit for the Wagner group. But in Ukraine, they have this battalion, the Tornado Battalion, whose leadership has been jailed for several years by the Ukrainian security services because they were so out of control and were documenting what they were doing, including sexually assaulting children, murdering and torturing people on camera. I mean, their cell phones made Hunter Biden's laptop look like a children's book. And I mean,
I don't mean to laugh because there's nothing funny about this, but yeah.
Ruslan Onashenko, their leader, who boasted about sexually assaulting small children on camera, and Daniel Lyashenko, who was a self-described ISIS member, a supporter of ISIS, who enjoyed beheading people. They were jailed, and they have been released under the orders of Volodymyr Zelensky to participate in frontline fighting in the Eastern theater of this conflict. So these are figures who just illustrate what goes on within the Azov battalion. And we've seen so many just disgusting leaked photos that actually appear on Telegram channels that are run by white nationalists like White Lives Matter. It's basically snuff, but it's documented war crimes by these forces. So, if indeed there were U.S. supplied weapons that hit this prison in Donetsk, it would be possibly the first U.S. Anti-Nazi operation since World War II.
The most successful.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise we're just like running these day by